KEET TV presents Homework Hotline, the after-school show that fuses learning with fun. Watch local teachers bring the classroom on air and online. This is Homework Hotline.
Hi, welcome to Homework Hotline. I'm Ken Pinkerton. I taught science at Zane Middle School.
And I'm Pam Halstead. I taught science at Fortuna High School.
And we're here to do some fun demonstrations in math and science. And we've been trying to work with classroom teachers to find out what they'd like to do. And then sometimes we just find a cool topic that we want to share, which is today's topic. So today we're going to talk about apples.
Yay! And it's so appropriate to this season because this is when so many apples come into fruit.
Right.
And mature.
Yeah, and we're really lucky. I think apples are the most common fruit out there in the United States, definitely. So
that makes sense. So many different varieties
yeah.
too. Like if you think of bananas, for instance, unless you live in Hawaii, pretty much you have one banana. You know,
right.
yeah. In Hawaii, there's a lot more, but but anyway, yeah. So a big giant shout out to the business here, Clenkins Ciderworks, which is amazing people running a delicious place, a healthy and delicious at the same time. Yeah.
So they're in Fortuna, and I think if we go to the next screen, and they have a big orchard just right by the freeway. You can see it there.
Yes.
And I think they said they grow 25 different. That's what it says, 25 different varieties, and they provided us with at least 12 today to share on the show.
Yes.
And they make incredible juice. It's a good family and a really cool place. So if you're ever in Fortuna, stop by and try some apples. And
we missed the Apple Harvest Festival, which was in October, usually the first Saturday in October, along with Pastels on the Plaza. So much we're missing, dang nab, but nevertheless, the apples are still there, so we're happy. And where do apples come from is our question.
So, definitely so. So, well, the only native American apple was a tiny crab apple, so something probably like the size of this or smaller. So the apples that we know of came from Kazakhstan, which is in Asia. You've probably heard about it recently.
Yes.
Then they kind of spread from there, and then the Romans, who were conquerors of much of Asia and Europe, spread them across Asia and Europe, and then the Europeans brought them to America. So I think even on the Mayflower that they brought some different apples, probably apple trees with them or apple cuttings with them, they are so important to historically important to people. And we'll talk about that a little bit more too as we go along. So.
And just like, if you look at all these apples, it's crazy. Back when Ken said that in Kazakhstan, where they were originated, they were just like he said, like the crab apple.
A little tiny rotten little, not rotten little apple, but but not what you look at and say, that would really be good. So you'd have to be pretty hungry, or it would take a lot of them. If you compare it to kind of this is a Sierra Beauty, and this is probably a big crab apple too.
Yes.
But the difference in the development of apples is pretty phenomenal.
So people look at what kind of traits they like in an apple, and they look at what do I like? Do I like the taste? Do I like the flavor? Which we'll talk about also. And then we also pick how well does it ship, and et cetera, et cetera. But that one, the size, yes.
Yeah. And then we'll talk about a little bit more about the genetics, and that's what's really incredible. So you want to talk about flowers?
Sure, let's talk about flowers, absolutely.
So this is a cool model of a flower.
Oh my goodness.
And you want to talk about it?
Let's talk about it. Okay. So what a flower is, it's the way that the plant can make seeds, basically. So if you're looking at this flower, these are petals that help to protect the flower itself. When it's a bud, they're closed off, but there's male and female parts. So the female part's in the center here, and this is the part's called the ovary, this is the style, this is the stigma, the whole thing's called the pistil. So this is the pistil, the female part. And here are the anthers, which are on the stamens, and the stamens are the male part, and the male part is pollen. So the way that a plant is pollinated is it has to get the pollen here into the stigma here. And so then it can move down and then fertilize eggs down here. So that's the trick. And what do apples use, Ken, to do that?
They're pollinated by bees and insects. I think bees are the primary
that makes sense.
Primary pollinator of
of apples.
Yeah,
Yes.
so, and if you're ever or if you have apple trees, you'll hear wonderful buzzing going on.
So the buzzing goes around here and then crawls all over to get the nectar, and then the sticky part up here is usually nectar, and which makes the bee go from here to there, and then down it goes, and inside here, the ovary is where the seeds are going to form.
Right.
Yeah, so the seeds are in an apple, and here's the cool part that Ken will show you about the apple forming, which is a fruit, a kind of fruit.
Yeah, so this looks like, you can see the flower that we have on the background over Pam's shoulder. And what happens is that the flower doesn't go away, that actually the apple is a huge, what we call swelling or development of the ovary. And if you look at an apple next time you get one, or if you have lucky to have one at home, or let's see, you can actually see the flower at the very end. So if you look in there, you can see the
stamens and
the stamens. Yeah. So in the middle, you'll see the little rod sticking out, and then a little. So this guy you can still see, or this gal, I guess you can still see.
Yes, right.
And you'll still be able to see the stamens with in there too. So the apple is just a giant enlargement of the.
Actually, it's in this case though, it's an enlargement of what's holding the flower itself, which is the receptacle. So this flower is called an this fruit is called an accessory fruit, which means it's coming from not just the ovary, because like a plum or a peach comes only from this part of the flower. But this apple comes from the bottom part, and then the seeds themselves, as Ken can show you, or Ken did show you. Well, let's show.
Well, let's cut some open
let's do that.
and then show.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So
okay.
we'll do a couple cuts.
We're moving.
I'll move this out of the way. You want to do a
yes,
longitudinal, and we'll do
let's
a horizontal
do it.
too.
Okay, cool.
So if we cut it straight down the middle.
Straight down the middle. Okay.
And then we can ask the camera to zoom in on those guys. And so you can see right here, that's the stem, which is one of the characteristics.
Yeah, the stem of the flower,
she cut right through one of the seeds. And there I can barely see little tiny, looks like little kind of hairy things sticking out. And those are the stamens, right?
Yes, and all the other little parts of the flower. So the flower itself is like this. I mean, the stem here is the stem of the flower. Right. So this is actually, so it goes like this because it's heavy.
It gets heavier,
yeah,
right?
And as it gets heavier. But why does the plant do this? The plant does this because this is a delicious thing that animals will eat and carry with them. And then the seeds will get deposited different places and then germinate and turn into another apple tree.
So it's a win-win because it's got something wonderful around it, so that that animals come, including you and me, if we eat the whole stem. And then they take it away somewhere else, and when they defecate or they poop, then the seeds are deposited with a wonderful little bit of fertilizer too.
Yes.
And so then you can get the apples to come up. And then what's amazing about the apples is that the genetics are incredibly complex. Okay, so when if you have your very, 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 very favorite apples, and you take the seeds and you plant them, you will not get the same tree.
Wow.
So
that's cool.
Looking at the data, that 99.9% of apples that are planted by seeds are horrible.
Oh my heavens!
For us, that they just don't turn into something.
Oh wow!
So for
that's
them,
why they graft apples.
That's why they graft apples.
So from my husband and I bought a grafted apple tree from Costco like several years ago, and so we get Fuji, Brabant, 3 or 4 different kinds of apples, and they're just growing like crazy. Yeah.
Now we can show that we're talking about grafting.
Oh,
let's do this. I brought in a little one that I got.
Oh, nice.
Here, I'll put this down to keep it from getting dirty all over the place. So, so you'll often see this with all kinds of trees now, is that this has got, if you look, this goes up and then there's kind of a weird bump right here in the plant that doesn't quite look natural, and it's not, is that this is a grafted rootstock. So this was.
Do you know what do they use as the rootstock? Do you know what they?
I don't know.
Okay, I just wondered if there was something they did.
But it's often because of they're resistant to different diseases. But then what I found out doing some research is that it also determines the size of the plant. Is that if you put it on a dwarf rootstock, the reason they do that is because it makes a smaller plant.
Yes.
Yeah. So
so
there's the advantage of health. And then what Pam's plant, which is really cool, was they took several, like a cutting like this, and they make a very careful cut into the bark, and they put that in and then wrap it so it doesn't fall out. And you can get 3 different apples coming off the same tree. There's
Yeah.
one in Petrolia that had 19 different apples. Yeah,
That's
so
crazy.
So somebody who loved to do it. So we often go to this place. They'd let us go in, and we made juice.
Well, this is a Honeycrisp?
Yeah, that's a Honeycrisp.
That's one of my favorite kind of apples. They sell them at the store, and they're delicious.
Yeah. And then I faked it. This is clip.
Oh, yeah. Oh well, that's it.
But that's grafting. So grafting is amazing. And then if you want, so whoever came up with the first Honeycrisp tree, they grew it and tasted it and said, this is fantastic. And they made lots of cuttings, and every one of those is genetically the same.
Wow.
So the way that they develop new trees is that they do crosses and stuff. So for example, let me look and see. I'm going to put this away. It's nice
we have different kinds of apples from Clenkins here. So
and what they did, and some of them. So this is the Mitsu, which is a very, very popular apple right now. And it's a cross between, I'm trying to think a Golden Delicious and an Indio. So they took, in the fields, they very carefully took a Golden Delicious, which is this plant here, and an Indio, which I don't know.
And they took the pollen from it?
Yeah, they took the pollen from it, and then they knew exactly what the genetic makeup was.
Yes, they apply it by hand, so
Right.
they don't just rely on the bees to fly from one to the next.
Right, and then they plant 1,000 seeds and try them.
Wow.
And if it was good, then that would be the good cross, and then all of them have to come from that same cross.
Wow, that's amazing. Well, I think I have a slide too. This is just the life cycle, which we already talked about, the female part and the males, and then turning into the fruit, and the fruit then having the seeds inside. And then this is just showing how the fruit is. It starts with the flower, and then it ends up being, there's the remaining flower parts. This is an upside down apple, but this is the way that the flower ends up looking with the seeds. And then this is just showing different types of fruits, and that the apple is a fruit made from not only the flower parts themselves, but also the bottom part that holds the flower. Right. So that's called accessory, because it's not a true fruit. Well, it's kind of tricky. If you wanted to take have an interesting class, take a botany class in college, and it's fascinating. All the stuff that plants are amazing organisms.
They really are.
They're very cool. And then this is what Ken talked about.
We talked about, yeah. So Kazakhstan this is Russia, the Mediterranean. So in the high mountains.
No problem. No problem.
It's a very harsh area. So.
That's interesting.
Or at least characteristically it is. There must be some nice places for growing.
And so when you say Silk Road, was this literally because of silkworms?
Yeah, they traded
Yeah.
across there. So that's how they spread. And then the Romans took them to Europe. And
then they went by ship over to us.
To us, yeah.
To the New World.
And then now they're going back and forth as we cultivars come up and we get new apples. So I know that used to be when I was a kid, it was like you get delicious apples and a couple others, but there wasn't that
hardly
many.
any. Right, golden delicious and red delicious.
Right.
Now this is also something that Kim was talking about, how it's the genetics. They have, so humans have 46 chromosomes, and just check out, where's a chromosome? It's inside the cell's nucleus, and we have 46 of these, and actually 23 pairs, but it's, if you look, the chromosome is composed of DNA and proteins, and then a section of DNA is a gene. So if we go back and look, the 46 chromosomes for humans, did I mess up here? I think I was supposed to put a higher number than that.
I'll check and see.
No, maybe it's 17.
It is 17. Yeah,
it is 17. No,
yeah.
It's good. It was the number of genes. That's right. Is the
yeah.
genes. So the genes are 57,000, and the genes there for us is 30,000. Are they all functional? They don't exactly know, if they all work at the same time or whatever at different times.
Yeah.
Turned on or turned off.
Yeah,
all right,
so
so
pretty
I'm going the right. Let's go
so let's look. We did a neat
traits.
Oh yeah, the traits. But I wanted to
don't
show,
have to. Please
show a
do
cool
whatever.
thing. No, I wanted to do traits anyway. And this is what kind of section is that?
Okay. Let's see.
Or?
So let me see if I can remember. Like if you chop me this way.
Axial?
This is longitudinal.
Right,
so you were right. That's longitudinal. And this is
axial?
No. Oh, maybe.
Or transverse.
It's gone transverse.
Well, we're gonna cut it right in half.
We're gonna cut it transverse is a good way to put it.
Yeah, we'll cut it down the
I think
middle.
it's right, down
so,
the middle.
and then this is a neat thing to see. If I can ask the
Cross section?
Yeah. Or I can put it there and maybe I'll stop wiggling.
Yes.
So if you do this with apples, there's a neat pattern here. Where the math comes in is that you'll find 5 seeds inside every time too. So those are the little seeds. And the seeds are often very bitter, so that the animals don't chew them up quite so much.
Is that because of cyanide, maybe?
I think so.
A little bit of cyanide, yeah.
A little bit in there. So, but that's another neat thing to do. Cut up your apples, and then you'll notice that they start turning brown.
Yes.
And that's because of oxidation.
Right. So combining with the oxygen in the air to cause a chemical reaction, and that reaction is brown in color.
So and then traits. We'll segue into that.
All right. Let's look at the traits.
So
Awesome.
sweetness, tartness. Flavor. So some apples, I know that people really like some sweet ones, and other people like tart ones. So the flavor, are they really?
Pippin, was that not an apple?
I think so.
That was the other one that I remember as a kid.
Yeah, definitely. So I think on here, it says that Pippin started in Newton, Long Island in the 1700s. So it's definitely been around. And crunchiness and color, and then long stem and short stem. And if you look at the ones that Glendinnin's very nicely provided, as you can see that they have a longer stem, and then some of these, like the Pippin, it's got a very short stem.
Yes.
And then the Mitsui, or Mutsu, excuse me, I always want to call it Mitsui. The Mutsu, well, it's combined. This one's short and that one's long. Yeah, right. But I think it's
maybe that one fell off.
A long one. And then the Sierra Beauty has got, and the Spitzenberg. Both have a shorter stem to them. So there's a really cool book called The Botany of Desire. Like some apples that would have to be stored in barrels. So people found the apple that you could put in a barrel and it would last a whole year.
That's right. And because especially if you didn't have or you live in a place that's fairly cold, you want it to last a long time. Oh wait, there was something else with this. There was a graph or bar graph here about most desired apple traits. Extremely important is blue, and somewhat important is red. And flavor tended to be the one that most people, which kind of makes sense, right? When you're eating something, you want it to taste good. And then how fresh it is. And what it looks like, then it gets less and less nutrition, although very important, is not high on people's list. You know, if they're eating fruit.
Right, it's a good thing.
I'm not sure versatility, but maybe you can use it in different ways.
Yeah, because there are some apples that are just for baking, that they're not very sweet. Oh,
that's right.
But they make really good.
Do you know of any of these? Is a bellflower that, or no?
I think the bellflower, it's a really nice subtle apple.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't get too squishy, and I know that textures one says.
I know an apple that's really good. There's
at all.
I don't either. There's an apple called a king apple that is native to here or was developed here, and I use that to make apple crisp. It's like the same, similar to an apple pie, but it's really good for baking.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then the other thing I noticed is that I think that some varieties are being chosen to not brown so fast.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so that would be, that way, especially with kids, if you cut up your apples and they still stay nice and bright, or if you have a store, from a marketing point of view.
Just what it looks like.
Yeah,
who knows what it does to the nutrition?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know, that's the thing. Something can look a certain way, and if it lasts longer, sometimes makes you wonder.
Why
is that
it
good
doing
or
that? So
not as good? Yeah.
Yeah. So the characteristics are really neat, and then the color. So this is a nice blushy. This is called a blushing gold, and that's a good word. It's a nice red one, and this is the Jana Gold, which is a nice red glow to it. And then apples like this, which I don't know what this one is, just a gorgeous.
Oh wow! Wait, where did you get that? Is that from Clenkins?
That's from Clenkins.
Oh no,
I
I don't know.
But it's a gorgeous apple.
I mean, you know what it looks like? It looks like a Honeycrisp, but I don't think
it could very well be. And then and then waxiness is another characteristic.
Oh yes.
Is that some apples have a really thick waxy coating on them, and that helps protect them.
Yeah, that's right.
Over a longer time, and from bugs and things too.
Nice.
And then the size, with crab apples. These are apples that I have at my house that are very small, but they're incredibly sweet. They're like almost a candy. They're so sweet.
Nice.
So pollen goes into the development of them, and which brings us to, I think we can go to the U.S. history maybe.
All right, let's do that.
Let's
U.S.
see.
history. Yay.
So Johnny Appleseed, you've all heard of
Yay.
Johnny Appleseed, and Johnny Appleseed is one of the most famous American folk heroes, so the tradition was he was kind of an exotic or peculiar fellow, that the legend says he walked around with a pot on his head all the time, his cooking pot. But the history of him is even better than that, is that
is there more?
Frontier law, when Johnny Appleseed was born at the time of the American Revolution, his father was in the military, and his mother died, I think, in childbirth of his sibling. And his dad passed away. So he became an orphan very young. And so he started, I guess, had a fascination with plants, and then he lucked into that in the United States at that time, if you wanted a homestead, the way you would establish it is you had to plant 50 trees.
Oh.
And so what Johnny Appleseed or John Chapman did is he walked all over Illinois, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, and he planted nurseries. So he would go to a place before other people moved there and plant a whole bunch of trees with the seeds, and get somebody to take care of them, and he would go on to the next place. And so by the time he died, which I think he died when he was 70, he had over he had over 1,200 acres of land that he personally owned that was in orchards.
Wow.
So
where is he buried?
I don't remember.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, but I don't remember.
He was a benefactor of several states, so who knows exactly.
So lots of them, and he might be buried in several places by American history.
Oh, yeah, right. I got you. Yeah.
Yeah. So and then the amazing thing is that at the time, Johnny Appleseed's. They didn't care how they tasted. They called them spitters. Is that most of the apples that were grown at that time really were bitter. They weren't for eating. They were for making juice. And then they made cider, because cider and hard cider, it would turn to a kind of alcohol.
Because of the yeast, and then the sugar, you added the sugar to it?
It would last a long time. They could barrel it or cork it, and so it became, apple juice or apple cider was one of the most important foods of the colonial times, and it went on for a long, long time.
Nice. And it probably actually was a safer thing. I've read where people drank mead or beer because it was safer than regular water.
Right.
To drink.
You didn't get cholera from cider.
It might make you a little tipsy as well. But
right. And it lasted, it kept you warm, and it was very high in sugar, so it was nutritious. And so the juice was much more important. And that's why, from what I've read, that Johnny Appleseed just planted seeds. Partly he had a belief that he didn't like cultivars. He didn't believe in cuttings. That all of his plants were all planted from seeds so that they would make juice.
Cool.
So that was a pretty neat thing.
Oh, here's the grafting you're talking
about. That's the grafting. So yeah.
Right.
So it's all of those things. So so Johnny Appleseed was responsible for a lot of those things that went in there. So
cool.
So one of the neat things about it.
Something that is cool is that the making of cider is a really big thing at Clendenin's.
Right.
And it looks kind of complicated, but it's basically that you squeeze the juice out of the pulp part.
Right, you grind them up.
Grind them up, and then you squeeze, and it goes through several layers of whatever, cloth or something, and then pressed, and when then it turns into juice, and then they take all the leftover dry stuff and they use that for improving the soil,
right.
And animals can eat it, and it's really cool. So nothing is wasted.
Yeah, so it's really neat. And then when they get done with it, then their press that they have at Clendenin's is huge. It's,
I wonder if I have, except I don't think it came out. But there was a video about even making it. So also.
So their press is about the size of this table, or probably half of it.
But it's tall.
Yeah, and so they'll grind up probably 100 pounds of apples. And then they have a big hydraulic press, and it's well over, I think it's 100 years old or more.
Wow, 1909, that's the first time, and it was
right.
Cliff Clendenin is who's the kind of the main guy there now. His grandfather started it.
Right. So, so what's neat is they press it so much it's almost like a cake. It's they can pull it off and it's solid. That's how much that they press it out and to get the good juice. And then what they do very carefully and very importantly is they refrigerate it right away. They cap it. They keep any.
They don't want it to ferment.
They don't want it to ferment.
Because ferment would turn it into alcohol, and then you couldn't sell it to as many people.
Right.
And
Yeah.
Not that they won't make that eventually, but
right.
Yeah.
So. And yeah, so that's one of the important parts. And then, so that what another fascinating thing I found is that during Prohibition, and a sad part today, is that the people didn't want. Prohibition was a time in the United States when it was illegal to buy alcohol. And so very sadly, some of the federal agents, the FBI agents and the revenuers went in and they cut down a lot of the Johnny Appleseed's original orchards because they were trying to stop people from growing apples. So
well,
kind of one of those,
that's terrible.
Yeah, I know, it just doesn't make sense
Yeah.
at the time. So, and then, or they would, and then sometimes they would sell like a barrel of apple juice or grape juice and say caution. They have a big sign that says caution, do not expose to air because it will ferment. So
yeah, like people wouldn't do that.
So,
that didn't last for a long time in the United States, but anyway, it wasn't a very popular law.
No, it wasn't very much.
Yeah.
So, so they're pretty. It's an amazing fruit, amazing plant with lots of details that you might not think about. I'm trying to think of what else I've got. Let me look at my notes real fast and see what.
They're very healthy too. Apples are a really good thing to eat. It's good for your gums and your teeth to chew. And there's a lot of nutrition in them, and it's better than eating candy. But it's like nature's candy, because candy is too concentrated in terms of sugar. That's the awesome thing about the apple; it has just the right amount of sugar and the right amount of nutrients, just like other fruits, which are more healthy than what we tend to eat now. Which you know, it's tasty, but may not be the healthiest.
An apple a day keeps the doctor away.
That's what they say. Yes, the adage.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So. Trying to see what else I had in my notes that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
We talked about oxidation. Oh, another thing that you'll notice at home, you want to keep apples and your bananas separate because they make
gas.
Ethylene gas.
Ethylene gas, yeah, which prompts the one to mature the other.
Right.
So your apples can go bad faster, right?
And the bananas will turn black and go bad faster. So you would definitely want to get
oh my gosh.
your
you know, I put apples, and I'm glad you said that, apples and bananas on my cereal, and I put them both in this little bag. Well, but I use it the next day.
You put it in the refrigerator.
In the refrigerator. It slows it down.
Yeah,
that's right. That's a good thing about temperature. The higher the temperature. Well, we so appreciate that Clenkins did let us use all of these.
All these great apples, right?
Yes,
so we're going to enjoy them afterwards. So
yeah, cool. I know.
So
make sure that you visit them when you can. It's on, oh my gosh, 12th Street. It's on 12th Street in Fortuna. Right. So it's like kind of you're going out, either you're coming into Fortuna or you're going out of Fortuna.
Right.
It's the same street that the high school is on.
Right. Yeah. And then there's Arrington apples, which I don't know about.
It is not anymore.
No, it's not there
anymore.
Arrington
didn't happen anymore. Yeah, maybe people are still there. There is. It's something else now, but yeah.
Yeah, and then look around your neighborhoods. Is that there's still? I know when I lived out in the Mattole Valley, and that used to be a very big apple center that they ship them to the Bay Area.
Right.
That it was a big supplier. So.
Right, honeydew and like you said.
Yeah. And then some of the development was out there. So, well, I'm Ken Pinkerton, and
I'm Pam Halstead.
There'll be another pair. Pam will be back on Thursday.
Yay! I'll be talking about water and something an important ingredient of apples.
See you then.
Thanks, you guys. Bye bye.